So, so our third speaker for the session is Lior. You've all heard about now. So Lior's a senior lecturer at the Ono Academic College. And he's, as you heard before, he's a long-time collaborator of mine since we were a master's student in Math Flashes Lab and PhD student together. And so we've had collaborations going for quite a few years now, and Lior performs research on developing computational paradigms for studying. A slow movement, yeah. It's a long time. It's a long time habit that's hard to break. So, yeah. So Lior performs research on developing computational paradigms for studying creative exploration, synchronization in dynamic exploration, and creative human-agent interactions. And today he's going to talk about slow motion in joint improvisation. Thanks, Lior.
Thanks, Jason. Yeah, this is a real treat for me. It's like people from Tamar was my PhD and master advisor, people from different places, people I do research with. And it's also this particular line of research was, I grew up in kind of motor control studying with Tamar and sitting next to Jason. And then I kind of drifted away, and through this project I kind of connected again with motor control, and then met Robrecht and said, another motor control person. Turn out, postdoc of a good friend of mine, Natalie Sabans, a joint action person, so everything is kind of going together. It's really, we had 3 talks in the first session we will have, and they are very different. We have a very clinical and deep talk now. Before we had something that may be a bit more theoretical, scientific. This will be very, very idiosyncratic. This is my own research that kind of led to this workshop, working with Jason, and kind of maybe this strange journey from joint action to improvisation, and setting maybe the stage to kind of a distributed talk that Jason and me are doing, presenting our work together in 2 talks. Feel free to ask questions and comment. So if you are in a rush to run away, this is a take-home message. Too long, don't read. People cannot move slowly and smoothly. So we kind of heard a hint of it, and Jason and me reached this conclusion of this finding really accidentally, and I want to tell this story. So I'm going to tell the story through 4 papers that kind of led to this line of research that we are engaged in now. And maybe a meta thought throughout this talk is that what I try to do is take almost elusive phenomena, like how people move together in theater, which is kind of a wing that I'm carrying for many years, and then distill it to something more reductionist, and distill it. And this is what I've been doing for many years, trying to understand how people, for example, move together and create together. And through the work with Robert and Jason, I feel that recently we are taking it another level down or reducing it. So interesting in how people work together, how people are moving together, maybe how those fish are moving together in a school, but taking it another layer and just not focusing on the motor control aspect of joint action, of synchronized joint action. And there's so, while you drill down, there is so many to check there and to find there. So I thought it will be just one paper, and we'll keep digging into this work. So it's really interesting journey. And we find out there is no slow motion, and now we are for several years trying to understand. So why? A bit of a context. Some of you know this work. It was done with Uri Alon at the Weizmann lab. Basically, we were interested in this very, like I said, elusive phenomena that some of you are here actually practitioners, that people do things together which are non-planned. They are planned within a system. So Mao, for example, is leading people to play together. Some of you dance together with people, or do theater, or just have an engaging conversation, or even maybe now in the break you'll have some deep discussion, and suddenly you have this moment that you feel you are and the other person, there is something happening there. So we kind of know this phenomena that we call joint improvisation, but how can we explore it? And in particular, how can we study it scientifically? When people that do improvisation, practitioners, often describe almost mystical experience. They said something like, yeah, we were playing together, and suddenly the music came and took us, and we were like in this different space. Peter Brook said, there is an opening, and everyone in the room feel it, but there is nothing we can say about this opening. So how can you study something like this? And this was something I discussed with Uri Alon in the Weizmann for several years. Being friends from the theater, I wrote a short paper about it if you are interested. And then we came up with this moment that we can call moment of togetherness. Maybe we can study it. And in particular, maybe you can use like the tushba, like the non-biblical, how do you say tushba in English? the non-written script. So in theater, in movement therapy, and yeah, tushba, exactly. So there is a lot of things that we know, but they are not written, they are not discussed often. And one thing that we know in theater, probably for thousands of years, but we know it like maybe for a couple of hundreds. We're still in the tushba question. Sorry that I brought it. So we know that we can train people to go into this moment of together by doing something, for example, like the mirror game. So the mirror game is a game where you have two people standing in front of each other, and they're kind of dancing together when one person is leading, and then they are switching. And you can do it in a first practice in theater improvisation, and maybe after 5 or 10 minutes, the instructor will say bell, and then they go to this joint improvisation. So they keep moving together as if they are mirroring each other. So it's a bit this entrainment, but there is also some planning. There is, I will lead here, and there is something going. So we thought maybe we can put markers, measure the movement, come up with some model. Uri is a physicist, and I'm in love with physicists. Physicists have this approach that said, take complex phenomena and distill it even more. I said, okay, this is too complex, the human body, two human body, let's just do a one-dimensional. This like seems idiotic. You show it to the theater people. What is like moving linear? But why not? Let's do it. So we built this device, and we started collecting data, and connecting in a way to this literature that Robert suggested with entrainment and how people are moving together rhythmically. But here the instruction is to mirror each other, but to do also interesting things. And when you tell people that have experience to do interesting things, they will do something, for example, like a crescendo. So they will do ta, 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 and increase, and then they switch to something else. And we've been studying for a while. Almost as a side note, we discovered at some point that there is a phenomenon that probably was known, that when someone is initiating a movement, they are doing smooth motion. But when someone is following and doesn't have an idea, a script where the other person is leading, they will kind of manage to follow, but they do a lot of what we call jitter. And then working with Jason, and then there is a name for it. It's called error correction. And because you don't have a model, so you are reacting. And we suggested that this jitter, this error correction, is a marker, if you want, to the situation when you have a leader and a follower, a reactive relationship. But somehow, miraculously, 10% of the time, 20% of the time, people can go to this moment that both people are synchronized and they don't have jitter. And if you believe this idea that the jitter is a marker of followership, now we have a situation when you have two leaders. Or in improvisation, we also said two followers, follow the follower. So you have like two people kind of understanding each other and creating some script. Not super complex, but something is happening. For here, for example, this decreasing of amplitude and maybe increasing of pace. And we call this co-confident because we had a colleague who was a painter and said when he was studying to paint, his teacher always told him, your hand needs to move in a confident way. So not doing something like this, moving in a feed-forward, plan-forward way. So probably this is a sign of some predictive planning that is there. And what's nice with this CC, with this co-confident, lack of jitter and synchronized, that you can identify it algorithmically. And then you can do measurement. So for example, you can look at this temporal segment and ask what is happening in the heart, maybe what is happening in the brain, not so easy, what is happening in terms of breathing. So you can try to pinpoint what is happening in the body, in the mind, in the emotion, in this interesting moment. And people are starting to do it. We just did it once to ask also people, just tell us what is happening in this moment. So I did one study with Naval Levid Binun and Yulia Guland when after we measured physiology, we showed people the game. So they were playing, it was very intense, and then they see like 6 minutes of the game. And we asked them this question, to what extent did you feel you are together with the other person? The sense of togetherness. And we were, of course, what we wished was to collaborate our kind of empirical marker, which is this CC moment. And lo and behold, it's very nice. Sometimes the motion shows this CC, and people report, both people, so the blue and the green and the red line below, both people report, yes, we are in togetherness. Great. So we have empirical evidence and subjective finding. But as a side note, we also notice that often you have something like this. And I think this is directly related to this workshop. There is no movement, so we cannot measure. So our marker of togetherness is not working, failed. But you ask people, they say, yeah, this was a moment of togetherness. Something really happened there. And I think if we think about it, it makes sense, right? Like sometimes we feel really close to someone when we are doing something, but maybe we can be intimate also without doing too much. Like if you see two people on a bench sitting quiet, either they are really pissed at each other or really close, right? So this, how can you differentiate? And what I really like about this example is that I'm often when presenting it, like in theater conference, improvisation, people say, you are taking this magical moment and you are distilling it to equation and measurement. And I would like to suggest that, no, we don't. We just look at a very particular small spectrum of the line. There is so much going on. There is a brain, there is a body, there is a first person, there is phenomenology. So I think we are okay. Okay, so this happened, and then this led us to ask, do people have, so they go together, they kind of enmesh, but do they keep their individuality? And we went into a bit towards the motor control level, and we noticed that when people are doing this motion, this linear motion, some people, not surprised, are different. So some people will have maybe a quicker burst, and some people will have a slower one. The technical terms are kurtosis and skewness, basically a description of this bell-shaped velocity. And if you have this description, again, not surprising, people are different in anything, you can ask now, you have this spread around different people, people are different. What will happen now when you bring two people into this togetherness mode? Will they behave like the red person, like the blue person? Will they meet in the middle? And we came up with, this was a work with Yuval Hart, we came up with two kind of hypotheses. Said either they will meet in the middle, this is option number 2. So I have this tendency to do this, you have this tendency, and we negotiate something in between, in the low level of the stroke, or I will come and do what you prefer. And we find out something really, really surprising that Jason helped us to decipher, so that all the pairs, regardless where they are starting in this axis of skewness and kurtosis, they meet in the same place. They always converge to the same place, as if there is a common ground. And this is known in linguistics. If now we have ways and internet, we don't need it, but 20 years ago, if I would ask you, what's your name? Amam. Let's meet in Paris in a month. Where shall we meet? Paris. Yeah, good. But let's say we need to find a specific location and a specific time. What would you say?
20 years ago,
Just guess, some place. Sorry, I'm picking on you.
Paris.
Okay, some people suggest the Eiffel Tower. Some people say maybe the Louvre. Many people will say Eiffel Tower 12 o'clock. So we have like, or maybe some people will say Louvre at 12 o'clock. So we have some common ground when we talk about things, although we didn't plan it in advance. So in this low level motor control, we also have this common ground. And why is the case is people meet in this particular, when you have skewness 0 and kurtosis 2.2. So calling my friend Jason, motor control, what's going on? Yes, this is what's going on. This is a minimal jerk theory developed by Tamar and her colleague in the 80s, mathematical model that predict how people are moving. So I knew it from the classical motion of the point to point, but Jason reminded me that when people are doing the rhythmic motion, actually the optimal solution, according to this computational theory, is exactly what we found out. So it seems that people kind of converge when they need to jointly improvise with someone else. They converge to some common ground which is known or optimal. So we were very happy, and for me it was like, after a few years we are connecting to this theory. Okay, so this started a collaboration with Jason, and interesting in this individuality. And then we said, jitter, called also error correction in the motor control world. Do people have a typical value of this jitter? Maybe a rate. Some people correct a lot, some people correct less. Not surprising, again, some people do. We have a variety in every motion. So we thought how to measure it. Said instead of this mirror game, people do a lot of stuff. Let's do more simple stimuli, and let's measure how people track this stimuli in different frequencies, like this. So they will see a line moving, and then we'll do chuck, chuck. So this is the blue is their hand. The red is a stimuli. And then we said maybe we can do it in more than one effector. So not only with the arm, also with the finger. So this is an experiment we did 2015. And we found out that indeed there is distribution. Some people are faster, some people are slower. Not very surprising. And what is nice, it seems there is some individuality. For people who are faster in the hand, faster in the sense they correct a lot, they do a lot of jitter, are somewhat also faster in the finger. So we were very happy about it. We managed to publish it. And almost as a side note, we said, let's see what is happening with the frequencies. And we found out something which was very strange, that as the frequency, for me it was at least, as the frequency increased, faster oscillations, people seem to do less jitter. And so it seems almost that it was easier for people to do to do faster movement if they want to get synchronized. And as a theater person, it was very, very strange, because when people come to a workshop, we always tell them, don't do too fast. Move slowly, move slowly. And it seems from this graph that actually moving very slow is not something that people feel very comfortable in when they need to correct someone else. So you're nodding, you say it makes sense to you, right? Interesting. For me, it didn't make sense. So let's hear a comment later if you want. So we said, let's replicate this. And Jason developed this nice setup where this is a IKEA table, and you have some markers that cost 20 shekels in Junoon. And you can have stimuli, fixed stimuli, different frequencies and different amplitude. And a person, for me, it's almost a VR system, because a person seeing on the screen, seeing the stimuli and seeing also his hand, a moving hand like this, represented as this blue dot, blue ellipse. And this is very, very nice also thinking about joint action, because maybe you can put someone in a different room and tell them they are working together, or not really there is someone there. So there is nice application also for joint action. But this is like a single person. This is not social at all. So very rigorous playing with the frequencies and the amplitude. And lo and behold, this phenomena stays. So what we see here, the gray, are the moments where they do the CC. They get smooth and synchronized motion with the stimuli. And the columns are different type of stimuli. And it seems that across different participants, different subjects, there is some stability. So there is white areas where no one has managed to get synchronized, and there is very dark areas that everyone managed to get synchronized. And if you look at the graphs of the frequency as a function of how much, what is the percentage of getting synchronized, of getting CC, you see this very stable graph that you'll see today over and over again, because we kind of looked at it, in different ways. Maybe final finding, and then opening for question. Then I think Jason said, what will happen now if we go back to the original social mirror game studies? And we did it, and we see the same phenomena in the original game. So this was kind of rigorous study, a tracking task. Then you go back, if you want, to the field, and the people do all kind of movement, and you see the same phenomena there. Either it's two expert or an expert and a novice. So for me, it's really a nice sequence from starting from like theater, and then going down, and then coming to the mirror game, single person mirror game, finding this finding, and then reaching this conference and talking about why people are not able to do slow movement. So thank you so much, and maybe open up for discussion.
Yeah, just before the question, I'm going to be pedantic, and yeah, I think Lior misremembered some of the things about who told you about the sine waves being a minimum jerk. I'm pretty sure it was someone else, not me. But
yeah,
really?
Thanks, yeah. I would bet. I told this story to so many people.
No, it was someone else. It wasn't. You told me about it, but it was someone else. Yeah, okay. Wow. And the second thing is, yes, before we go to question.
I'm not sure you're right.
I think there's an important distinction between slow movements and low frequency movements. So in these studies, we found that what people have difficulty with is low frequency movements. So you can imagine I can make a movement that's actually relatively fast, but the frequency is low. So this is the frequency here is something like half a hertz. So it's very slow. But I can also make very small movements where the frequency is very high, but if I measured the velocity here, it would be very low, the velocity, because the movements are very small, but the frequency is high. So these sort of movements, even though they're actually very slow in meters per second, we can do them without any problem in terms of error corrections. But if we make a movement, even if it's big and the absolute velocity here would be high, we'd still have a lot of trouble if you try and make a move from here to here in 2 seconds, and we're really bad at controlling it. So those are my pedantic notes on and you'll talk all the other questions I've already asked you over the years. So ask
that's an demonstration of our collaboration. I throw up ideas, Jason, correct.
Okay.
I would like to relate to what you said. When you're doing the pushing hands, it's the same dance. And when people are practiced in this dance, it is not total improvisation. It is something, the rhythm is already, you are familiar with the rhythm, you are familiar with the range of movements that you can do, and it's something that is limited. It is limited in the range of movements you can do, and usually in the frequency of the movement. So it's not exactly the same. It's something that it's a mutual kata that you developed with very strict rules.
We can discuss it later.
I think you should fight it. Guys, thanks so much. Let's have a last comment and then we continue over the break. No,
regarding the TLDR, about people just being unable to move slow, thank you, bye.
Yeah,
I have
it's a bit harsh.
a very important question. When it comes to moving slowly, when you get your eyes checked, nobody will ask you to just slowly move your eyes from left to right because the movement starts looking like this. They ask you to follow their fingers and then it becomes smoother. How much do you think the slow movement is also getting, the slow movement is getting smoother with the help of props? As a musician, I can tell it's much more difficult to just move my hand in one steady line without having it resting on a bow, rested on a violin, having something to lean on so that the muscles can relax while I attempt the slow movement, having also the audible feedback of how this movement is looking like. It's like my muscles are telling me exactly. The sound sounds like, I know I'm not doing a good job, but I don't have the same feedback when I move dry in air, just trying to control what I'm not really being able to control according to what you said. So I would love to hear about that.
So to have a quick answer, and then maybe we hear from Jason and from other people. So what I hear as a comment is that maybe some slow movement which are difficult if you have a feedback, physical feedback, haptic feedback, or vocal, or now in our case, which is visual, you track, it will be easier. So we totally agree. I think there is even evidence in Parkinson's that there is things that they can do with continuous feedback and not otherwise. We would suggest, at least the options, that there are limits even with all the practice and all the aids, there are limits. But I don't know, Jason, you want to add something to this? Or?
So I'm going to talk about it later.
Let's summarize our party line. Yeah. Thanks so much. This is great. Okay.
So first of all, thanks to all the speakers for the session.